It's Hollywood, mid-80s. Every dude's got a can of something flammable in their back pocket and a 5-year plan to be the next Vince Neil. And out of this stumbles a guy named Taime Downe, and this guy isn't just looking to start a band. He's already been running the most notorious hedonistic den in town, the Cat House. A nightclub so drenched in sleaze it made Studio 54 look like a cotillion. Now Tammy has a vision. He wants danger and lipstick. So he grabs 2 6-string gunslingers, Greg Steele and Brent Muscat. These guys look like they crawled out of a gutter behind the rainbow, but could riff like demons. Boom, right there, core lineup. And the name? Faster Pussycat. Lifted straight from that 1965 Russ Meyer grindhouse flick, Faster Pussycat, Kill Kill. The title? Perfect. Campy, violent, horny, solid. Things start moving, rehearsals turn into shows, the crowds grow, and then they land a bass player, Kelly Nichols. But fate yanks him out before they can even cut their debut record. So in slides Eric Stacy, previously from a band called Champagne. But hey, the guy could hold down a groove. And with that, the machine is built. Guitars primed, snarl locked in, and Tammy, he's ready to stomp the gas pedal straight through the floor. So now it's 1985 in Los Angeles. It's the apex predator phase of glam metal. Every club's a war zone, and right in the filth glitter eye of that hurricane, Faster Pussycat. This wasn't an accident. This was perfectly engineered. And the architect, Taime Downe. They brought in Mark Michaels on the drums, a really tight and punchy player. And before they even laid down a single note on tape, they were already packing the clubs. Because they had that vibe. Sweaty, foul, intoxicating LA gutter glam vibe. High heels, fishnet shirts, and mouths that wouldn't shut up. And that name, Faster Pussycat. Everybody had to become witnesses to the train wreck in a hurry. And musically, they didn't sound like polished studio rats. They were basically the bastard offspring of Aerosmith if you soaked them in cheap beer. A bit of Dolls in the DNA, a bit of Hanoi Rocks, punk attitude with a glam coat of paint. And everything they were about, that whole sound, was all building to that debut record. Faster Pussycat had arrived and they're already flipping the bird before you even hit play. So now we're in 1986, bleeding a bit into 87, and Faster Pussycat finally stumbles into the recording studio. They've got a shot, just one, and Elektra is writing the check, but not a big one. This is ramen budget rock and roll all the way, and the clock is ticking. Enter Rick Brody, the guy who wrangled Poison's Look What the Cat Dragged into a platinum sleaze machine. I covered that one a couple videos back. But Rick knew the magic wasn't in cleaning it up, it was in not cleaning it up. He knew how to bottle that lightning. He sees Tammy and the guys and says, yeah, don't touch a damn thing, just press record. There's no survival map of the sessions, but you can hear what happened. Analog all the way, big fat tape hiss, tube amps, compression that sounds like it was held together. No Pro Tools or auto-tune anywhere near this, just pure bleeding fingers and blown takes. And Tammy's driving the bus while Muscat and Steele are trading guitar licks. That 1-2 guitar punch, that's the whole backbone. Just riff after riff like glam got mugged by a punk band in an alley. And they didn't have any time to second guess. That's what makes the debut hit like it does. You could feel that urgency. And somehow in all that panic, they captured the exact frequency of the strip. Part trash, part flash, and just enough melody. This was a band clawing its way out of the LA gutters with a sound halfway between a bar fight and a lap dance. And every second of that debut album sounds like it. And that debut album did not come in subtle. 10 tracks, all killer, no ballad. Every tune's got the half-life of a Molotov cocktail. Short, loud, and burns fast. Don't Change That Song kicks the door open. Downe and Steele wrote it like they were dared to get banned from an FM radio. Has hooks for days. Nice, filthy guitar strut all over the place. And that one really set the tone. Sleazy, cocksure, and catchy. And then there's Bathroom Wall. Absolutely legendary tune. It's practically graffiti coming to life. And interestingly, it follows that 12-bar blues for the most part. It's kind of the late 80s answer to 8675309, put in all-out sleaze rock form. Stupid, loud, pure genius, the kind of song you scream along to. Cat House, that's Taime Downe writing a song about his own club. Most dudes write love songs. Taime wrote a banger about the building where he held court. And then there's Babylon, basically LA in a bottle. Starts off with a spoken word ramble from Ricky Rockman, who turned out to be the Cat House's house DJ. And the whole track is a sledgehammer. Pure strip chaos. And tracks like Smash Alley, Bottle in Front of Me, where the band taking their boots off and letting the barstool filth soak in. Much grittier. Where some of their Sunset Strip peers were trying to sound like Bon Jovi with a coke problem. Faster Pussycat sounded like they were the coke problem. The riffs are simple, the choruses dumb in the best way, and it worked. It was all about the feel, swagger over structure. So their debut album wasn't trying to win any Grammys. It was trying to get you laid, get you loud, and get you hooked, and that's exactly what it did. And then came the decline of Western civilization part 2, the metal years. Faster Pussycat shows up on it, doing interviews and throwing down live. These guys didn't look like they were trying to sell you a t-shirt, they looked like they were living in one. And the movie really locked them into that glam metal lore. So the first album drops in 87, hits number 97 on the Billboard 200, which is pretty respectable. Didn't go gold, didn't need to, but it definitely stuck. And it was about generating that buzz. The kind that got them on tours with Alice Cooper, Guns N' Roses, David Lee Roth, frickin' Motorhead. If you're sharing a stage with Lemmy and Roth in the same year, you're definitely doing something right. And MTV really dug them, especially once Headbangers Ball took over. Faster Pussycat videos were popping up all over the place at around 2 a.m. And their debut, decades later, would get slapped onto Hard Rock's list of 500 greatest rock and metal albums of all time. No surprise. It was a good sonic dirty joke with a killer hook. And this is where things get fun. Touring time, 87 to 88. Faster Pussycat lived on stage. And once that record dropped, they hit the road. 30 plus shows across North America and Europe, which is a full-blown siege. And they're opening for Alice Cooper, Live in the Flesh tour. And live, Faster Pussycat wasn't tight. They were dangerous. Their shows were not about precision. They were more about sweat, slurred charm, and the feeling that a fight might break out at any time. Tammy would slink around that mic, stealing Muscat trading riffs and the rhythm section just pounding away. So now it's 1989, the glam scene is bloated, and Faster Pussycat decides that they're going to pivot a bit. They're coming off their debut, and now what? So they go and drop Wake Me When It's Over. Turns out to be their biggest record. In sales, it actually went gold, 500,000 units, but in scope, in sound, it all changed. They did not have Rick Brody at the helm anymore. They brought in John Jansen, a producer with a toolbox full of polish and just enough sleaze cred as well. And he dialed much more into that bluesy swagger, tightening the screws, and suddenly the sleaze punks are making hard rock that sounds like it could fill an arena for a change. And then there's House of Pain, the ballad. Taime Downe, looking haunted, singing about childhood wounds and daddy issues. It's moody and slow. It's even got piano. And that is the perfect combo because it ends up blowing up. MTV plays it constantly, and every other video is just Tammy sitting around in soft light. And now suddenly Faster Pussycat's got some range. Still dirty enough for the diehards, but soft enough for the radio. And they had tracks like Poison Ivy and Where There's a Whip, There's a Way. Still nice and sleazy and strutting. Poison Ivy had the bright colors in the video and the attitude. But this got them out of the small places, and now they're doing full-on arenas. They're opening for Kiss, for Motley Crue, and now they have the attention. Big crowds, bigger pressure. Faster Pussycat had finally made it up the glam ladder. But climbing's the easy part. Staying there, that's where the cracks started showing. So here they are, Faster Pussycat flying high off of Wake Me When It's Over, and then boom, reality decides to kick in the door. They're in Omaha, Nebraska, and the drummer Mark gets popped. The guy mails himself heroin to his hotel room. Cops show up, bust him. He's off the tour and out of the band. And for a band that was thriving on this chaos, even this was too far. Tammy and the crew fired his ass on the spot. But the tour, of course, cannot stop. So who do they call? Frankie Banali from Quiet Riot. He steps in, lays it down, and keeps the machine moving. Total pro. But eventually they bring in Brett Bradshaw to take over full-time behind the kit. So he ended up getting everything stabilized, because in the Faster Pussycat universe, stability is just the eye of the hurricane. But by 1990, Faster Pussycat had graduated to doing covers. They went full glam circus on Carly Simon. You're So Vain, to be exact. They grabbed it, spiked it, plugged it into a Marshall stack, and screamed it back at the world. It was anything but subtle. And it was for Elektra's 40th anniversary compilation. In the video, people started noticing that Taime Downe was looking different. Jet black hair, darker vibe. And in 92, they dropped the Belted, Buckled, and Booted EP. And the Carly Simon cover did make the cut. Alongside it were 2 unreleased tracks and a new single, Nonstop to Nowhere. And Nonstop to Nowhere was the sound of the band shifting. Still dirty and loud, but the party was starting to get a bit weird. Less lipstick, more shadows. Faster Pussycat wasn't done yet, but something was definitely changing. So 92 rolls in and Faster Pussycat drops Whipped. Gone is the full tilt sleaze, and in its place, a darker, meaner animal. Michael Wagner's behind the board, the guy who turned Skid Row into a freight train. I covered their second album in depth as well. Make sure to check it out. But Michael brings the muscle, and the mood, that came more from the inside. Tammy was leading the charge into this gloom glam territory. Slower tempos, brooding guitars, more sneering lyrics. Nonstop to Nowhere drops as a lead single in the video. High contrast, low bullshit. It charts, barely. The album peaks at 90. A few fans embrace the gloom, and a lot are wondering what the hell happened. And then, boom, 1993, glam metal gets the axe. Nirvana, Soundgarden, dudes in flannel come in and take over. And Faster Pussycat, like the rest, get swept into the bin labeled obsolete. Labels start dropping bands. Inside the camp, it's definitely not pretty. Touring stalls. With the label interest drying up, members start drifting. Faster Pussycat calls it. Game over. But Taime, he ends up going industrial. He starts working with Pigface, and then forms the Newly Deads with Kyle from Bang Tango, trading glam for goth and mascara for machine loops. Faster Pussycat's flame flickered out, but Taime, he just changed the fuel. By the early 2000s, Taime Downe wasn't done. In 2001, he dusted off the Faster Pussycat name, only this time, it wasn't the same thing. He brought back Greg Steele and Brent Muscat, but it wasn't the same band. The rest of the crew, straight out of Taime's industrial lab. Christian Simon, Danny Nordahl, Chad Stewart, alumni of the Newly Deads, and Motochrist. And the music? Forget Bathroom Wall. They dropped Between the Valley of the Ultra Pussy, a remix album that took their original anthems and shoved them through a meat grinder of distortion and static. It's like Faster Pussycat, but fed through a broken fax machine. And included a Kiss cover, too. I Was Made for Loving You. Except now it sounded like Kiss locked in a morgue with drum machines. The glam loyalists hated it. This was not fishnets and lipstick anymore. Steele ended up bailing halfway through the 2001 tour. Tracy Guns of LA Guns fame briefly popped in. And then came 2005. Brent Muscat gets diagnosed with throat cancer. He bows out and steps aside for Eric Griffin from Murder Dolls. But the real soap opera kicks off in 2006. Faster Pussycat ends up splitting into two bands. Two bands, one name. On one side, you have Taime, the industrial warlord, and on the other, Brent Muscat, Eric Stacey, and Brett Bradshaw, reforming their own classic version. And for this version, they have Kurt Frolic on the vocals, who this person that you are listening to now, have played with numerous times back in the day in Las Vegas. Definitely a small world. Kurt, if you catch this, hello. So no remixes. They played the AVN Awards after party in Vegas, screaming, "This is the real Faster Pussycat." Muscat claimed he was donating his cash to cancer research. Taime fired off a MySpace post calling them a tribute band, and it was petty. Public, perfect. The press had a field day. Interviews flew. Was the real Faster Pussycat the one evolving, or the one frozen in time? No resolution, just lawsuits looming. One band, two heads, zero apologies. And then comes Rocklahoma, glam metal's Super Bowl. Taime Downe takes the stage. Mid-set, he launches into a drunken, venom-laced tirade, calls out Brent Muscat by name, throws shade at the feud, and then says he hopes Muscat dies from the cancer. Yeah, that actually happened. Silence, and then a whole lot of booing. The crowd just totally turns. Journalists just start sharpening their knives. Fans are walking out. It's a PR car crash. Taime ends up cutting the set short, walks off. But this wasn't some rock and roll bad boy moment. It was plain ugly. And it became the moment that fans wondered if either one should still be using the name. And Brent Muscat takes the high road, drops the name battle, walks away, publicly says Faster Pussycat is dead, and then he launches the Sin City Sinners. And from that moment on, Taime Downe holds full legal control of the band name, but the crown is stained. The Rocklahoma meltdown left a mark. And Taime's version kept playing clubs, festivals, biker bars, but the shadow just followed them. The live shows leaned harder into that glam meets industrial sound. Old fans gritted their teeth, purists stayed at home, but a weird little cult kept showing up. They'd still play Bathroom Wall, House of Pain, Cat House, but never straight. Always filtered through some kind of static or distortion and synths, like Taime was rebuilding his past in a junkyard. He was the last original man standing. No new full-length albums, just singles, remixes, a live record. Faster Pussycat, the name, lived on, but the band that once swaggered into the spotlight, that band died somewhere in the echo of the Rocklahoma mic drop. What was left? A name. And by the 2010s, they weren't packing arenas, but they were still out there on 80s package tours, club gigs, metal fests, nostalgia cruises like Monsters of Rock. And they would return to Rocklahoma because nothing in glam metal ever stays dead. Those mid-tier festivals and cramped clubs were home base. Loud, intimate, dirty. The lineup, constant shuffle. But two guys that stuck around with Tammy through the thick and thin were Danny Nordahl and Chad Stewart. Those two became the backbone, rhythm section. While many peers folded, Faster Pussycat just kept on cruising along. Pure, raw, stubborn momentum. And over the years, it turned out that their albums aged well. They fossilized into the glam canon. Bands from Buckcherry to The Darkness name-dropped them all the time. By the time the 2010s rolled into the 2020s, Taime Downe was a myth. Part frontman, part dark wave nightclub crypt keeper. One foot in the neon pass and the other one stomping through some Blade Runner fever dream. He wore black on black, shades indoors. He leaned hard into that whole dual persona thing. Sleaze rock relic and industrial warlord. When not on tour, DJing at goth clubs. People called him volatile, unpredictable, but loyal, absolutely. Tammy was loyal to that Faster Pussycat name. Kept that ship moving. Vinyl made a comeback, bringing deluxe reissues of the debut. Original pressings got snatched up in a heartbeat. Tour shirts from '88, worth more than rent. Faster Pussycat's name always came up. Streaming gave them a second win too. Bands like the Struts or Crash Diet started name-checking Tammy. The revivalists came, but then the tragedy. Earlier in the year, Faster Pussycat still touring, and then news breaks. Tammy's fiancée, they're on a cruise, they have an altercation, and she ends up jumping overboard, vanishing. This is all over the headlines, rumors and speculation. No statement, just silence. Tammy basically off the grid. It was a total gut shot. And reminding everybody behind that eyeliner there's a human being. And still, Faster Pussycat didn't fold. They played the gigs and hit the stage, pushed through it. For the fans and for the legacy. And 40 years deep, dead, reborn, still dragged through the fire and still breathing. Because Faster Pussycat was never about perfection. It was about survival. And Tammy, he's still there. The last alley cat left standing, burned, bruised, but definitely not done. And that's what you're left with. Not a fairy tale. Faster Pussycat never played that game. They were the band that showed up late, played a set with blood on the mic and left. Too glam for the punks, too punk for the glam kids, too damn dirty for everybody. And Taime Downe, he is the story. He didn't just front the band, he became it. Resurrecting that band over and over again, dragging it through genres, lawsuits, feuds. Most guys would have quit. Tammy just kept on going. And what started in '85 turned into this wild beast that refused to die. So yeah, no redemption arc, no neat ending by any stretch. Faster Pussycat did less changing and more just actually mutating and surviving. And in the end, that might be the most rock and roll thing about their whole story. So to my subscribers, I want to thank you so much. You freaking rock. If you haven't had a chance to subscribe yet, take your forehead and give that subscribe button a nice big smack with it. And then turn around and take the back of your head and give the like button a nice big smack as well. Join the family, and I want to thank you so much for watching.